Okay, so I am. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm so excited. I feel like we are sitting here with old friends, but in reality, this is the first time that we are sitting across a screen from each other. So it is so nice to finally meet you virtually. Good morning. Cheers.
Good morning.
Mhm.
Cheers.
What mugs do we all have? I'm sporting the good old Starbucks.
I have a good old Masters mug because that's where I'm at.
I love it.
Augusta, Georgia.
I have Blessed. Ray Dunn follows me everywhere.
Cambodia.
Representing Cambodia.
Reminder.
Well done, ladies. Well, I just want to thank you guys for joining us. I'm so excited about this topic that we get to chat about today, and I think we should note that actually Karli and Denise, you guys are both on home assignment or furlough or whatever words you want to call it. So I just want to take a minute to kind of introduce everyone and let us get to know each other, maybe let our community know what we're doing. But before we start all of that, Sarah, would you just kind of tell everyone who's hopping on a little bit about the process of how we're going to do this today? Because we do want to interact with those questions that people might have.
Yeah, welcome everyone. So you should see the chat feature, and you are welcome to add your questions, your thoughts, your responses as we go along. And just make sure if you want that chat message to go to everyone, there's an option to choose either to just to panelists, and so we'll see that, or you can send it to everyone. And so just make sure you take note of that. And yeah, just as we go along, feel free to add those questions and thoughts in the chat box.
So as we sit here on the screen today, we are women with organizations that love women who serve cross-culturally. And that's just exciting that this whole screen is filled with people that want to equip and encourage and resource those of us who have lived that crazy life of, kids growing up overseas and finding friends that are from all over the world, and you have something in common because you both know what Chick-fil-A is and you want to get as soon as you land. So anyway, again, I'm Denise Beck, Executive Director of Velvet Ashes, and we are so grateful that you're here. Sarah Hilkeman is the Program Director over here at Velvet Ashes, and we have with us Karli of Third Culture Thriving. Karli, thank you so much for joining us, and Denise of Taking Root. You guys are some of our great friends, and we just love getting to interact with you guys, love what you do for the community of women. And I just want to take a moment to let you guys introduce yourselves. Here's what I'd love for our community to hear. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and your organization, and how many, first of all, let's clear, what do you call it, furlough or home assignment or other words, and how many of those have you been on? So Karli, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is so fun. It does feel like old friends, which is great. Yeah, my name is Karli von Herbulis. I run Third Culture Thriving, which started as a podcast, well, really started as an Instagram account, moved to being a podcast, and then now is growing into kind of an online resource center for women serving overseas. I am mom to 2. Hallie is 7 and Shepherd is 4. And yeah, we are on, honestly, we don't really call it anything. We call it our yearly trip to the US. I was telling these guys before we all hopped on, like the kind of culture of where we live is less like a long trip every few years and is more a short trip once a year. Our organization doesn't dictate that for us. That's just kind of the rhythm that we've fallen into, and it's what works for us. So we do about once a year, we do 4 to 6 weeks in the US, and we kind of bounce around between a couple of different states. So we've been on the field almost 5 years, no, already 5 years. And so I think we've been back 5 or 6 times. This trip was planned to be in July, and then my husband had a death in the family, so we slid the whole trip up about 6 weeks. So we've just been here a week, and we're doing the same trip that we planned in July, just in a different time of the year. Yeah.
Sorry, my son was laughing super loud, so I'm texting him to be quiet. But at the same time, can you just tell us about the fun things that you have going on behind you? Because
Oh my gosh, I know it's so distracting, but this is like the only place.
Like you're hanging out at a bar.
Yes, it looks insane. So yes, popcorn machine, pool table. I'm actually sitting on a poker table. And then over here is a whole mounted alligator. I'm at my in-laws' house and they are Florida fabulous.
we just took our alligator down, or I'd show it to you.
I'm trying to think if I can fit it in a suitcase.
I know, that's so crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, ignore all of this.
Denise, tell us a little bit about you besides having a fabulous first name. What else?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm Denise James, and Alicia and I founded Taking Root probably about 7 years ago. We lived in the same city, and I moved into a really remote location and didn't talk to a Christian for like 3 months, like face to face. And it was a really hard time. And through that, we were just like, there's other people that's feeling like this. So let's start off as a blog and then kind of morph into community, into a podcast. And we are the most inconsistent little two people. Right now we're on a downslope, but some days we're doing really great. And so we're like high engagement, but we both have really full lives. I have 6 children. Next year, I'll be homeschooling kindergarten through high school. So 14 to 5, almost 6 is almost 15, almost 6 is the span. We've lived overseas for 13 years and we call it home assignment. I think that changed. I have a big traditional organization and they have a lot of rules and restrictions and stuff like that. That's beautiful, but I don't raise support. So, you take the good with the bad. And this is our 4th home assignment. So we stay anywhere from 4.5. We've stayed anywhere for like 4 months to like 15 months, just depending on the needs of our family and, just how life unfolds, right? We were supposed to be, we had a normal home assignment scheduled for 2021 April, but because of COVID and some medical needs that we went ahead and just like moved it up a little bit, and we're leaving to go back in June 21st if all Amazon orders come in.
This is
so.
And can you say how long in between yours? Karli said she takes one every year.
It really, it's been every 2 years to every like 3.5 years, just kind of depending on, we always plan, but then things always never go as planned. I mean, that's life. So so this one is like around 6 months and it had been like 2.5 years. And then we've gone like 3.5 years. So, yeah.
When we were in South Sudan, we did 3 years and that was hard. I feel like the last, 2 months before, no matter how long it is, you just think I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but Sarah, what about you? What was it like for you?
Yeah, so I was on the field for 5 years and didn't really have a plan or anything consistent related to home assignment or furlough. I ended up traveling back to my home state in the US every year, the first probably 3 years, and that was not intentional, but they were really short trips. Like the first time was 2 weeks. And then the next year it was 3 weeks. So I gradually got a little bit longer. And then when I felt like I was going to do a traditional kind of home assignment, it ended up turning into a decision to return permanently to the US. So my home assignment never followed any kind of predictable pattern
or anything. So
Yeah.
we hope that the discussion that we have will be really relevant to questions that you have. So if you have specific questions, please don't hesitate to put those in the chat. Sarah brings kind of a perspective of what is that like to furlough as a single and plan for all of that, while Denise and Karli have, this family. What is it like to herd your people in one direction and plan for them? So we hope that we can maybe answer all of your questions that you have, but I would love to know, how did you guys, Denise and Karli, navigate pandemic? And was that a year you were supposed to go home? Did you have questions about, do we stay, do we go? Did all your people leave you? What was that like?
It was a hard year. We were ones who stayed. But in our country in Indonesia, I would say lots of people left for various reasons. And so that was kind of challenging. I mean, the longer you live overseas, right? Going into, well into the second decade overseas, it can feel like being left behind, like a lot, like Sarah was saying, she went on home assignment and then didn't come back. So then there's the people that are on the field that are like, what the heck? So like there was a lot of that, and then that, like, we made the decision, we felt the Lord told us to stay, but then those doubts came in, the more people that would leave, like people would leave. And you're like, oh, well, should we go? So it was just, yeah, I'm glad that we were able to stay and kind of do our home assignment on our terms, if that makes any sense. I know it's always on the Lord's terms, but kind of what our family needed and not reactatory. Is that even a word? Which we had the ability to be able to do that. So I'm thankful.
That's great. Karli, what about you?
Yeah, we try to go back every summer. And for us, when the pandemic hit and it was like March, we decided to stay, and we felt really at peace with that decision. But at the same time, what ended up happening for us was there was a number of people that were scheduled to leave Rwanda permanently in May or June. And many of them said, okay, we're going now. And so these people that we were going to have goodbye parties for and have last play dates or last trips to our favorite beach houses, like, we didn't get to do those things. They left, like, some of our best friends packed up their house in like 4 days. And it was in this weird time where, like, everything felt very apocalyptic and we didn't know if we should be hugging people. Like, it was scary. And like, looking back now, we realized that we probably would have been very safe to do that at that time because Rwanda's caseload was very low. So we ended up staying in March, and then we had planned to just wait and not come back until this summer. And then we ended up having to do another kind of last minute emergency trip in October for another death in the family. It's been a year for us. And that was like in the height of everything being very intense here in the US. And then we had to kind of navigate, like, we were here and people got, like, family members got COVID while we were here, and we were having to navigate, okay, what's our protocol? Like, are we going to see these people? How long after exposure are we going to wait? Like, changing flights, that kind of stuff. So we kind of had to navigate it from both ends. This trip has felt much more peaceful because people are vaccinated. And I don't know, it feels a little bit more manageable.
Totally a different ball game this summer than it was last summer, for sure. Yes. There's a lot less fear around the unknown. At least we kind of can wrap our minds a little bit around what's going on. Okay, but you guys have between you a lot of kids, so you understand the furlough kid situation. I think the Lord in his grace, we went to the field when my youngest was 6, and so we didn't have the baby on an airplane scenario. I did not have to live through that. What is that like for you? Like, Denise, what is your biggest struggle with packing 6 kids on a plane, like the furlough with kids aspect? Let's just talk about the getting ready to go and the travel part, not even the being there part. What would you say is the hardest?
I think the hardest part is as the kids get older, the little years, they're crazy, right? Because you don't sleep. And then I always say it's like having 6 newborns and like suffering from insomnia all at the same time. Whenever you jet lag, it's like the worst, right? But it's just kind of like that physical hard. When they start getting older and they start having attachments to things and stuff that's not outside of you, that can be really challenging. I mean, and good, because the challenge is leaving stuff, like leaving the dog, leaving the friends, leaving the house, but that's also the drawback back. So it's like the beauty of both those things. Leaving to go, I feel like I've done it several times, right? So it's kind of like, and I'm kind of a low stress person when it comes to those things. Not that I don't ever yell at my kids, because there is always a time where like I go maniacs mom, but usually around like 8 hours before the flight leaves. But we, it's very minimal, right? We take nothing back with us. Usually we have nothing left. Like our clothes are rags. I'm all out of deodorant.
You like you get on the airplane and you think you're wearing your best clothes, and then you see them with fresh eyes as you look at everyone else, and you're like, oh, it's like this is really faded.
We did a stopover trip 2 times ago to Paris. From Indonesia, it's really hot, and we're thinking July in France, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Literally, my kids wore PJs all around Paris because that was the warmest thing they had. They were freezing, and I mean, we had literally like 4 pairs of underwear each, so it was kind of like rotation, just make it work. So so I always take minimum homeschooling stuff and extra bags. I mean, so I just try to keep it simple, like and lots of lists. So now going back, that's the trickier part. My poor husband, he suffered for many years.
Yes, and that, we'll talk about the weighing the bags thing. But so Karli, you have found that there's a lot of lists, like you mentioned, Denise, there's just lists and things, and maybe the planning part before is wrapping your mind around what needs to be done. I mean, because when you're leaving, at least, for us, it's like our local staff and our payments and our electric and our, like making sure pets are actually going to be fed if you're gone, like you have created something that has been so helpful. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So just before we did our kind of emergency trip in October, I started working on, it goes by a lot of names because we all call this a lot of things, but I call it the Passport Country Trip Planner. And it's essentially a series of different lists and kind of tools to help you think through what you need to do, what you need to buy, where you need to go when you do your trip back to your passport country. And it has been a huge gift to me. Even just, so I have it in front of me here. It's very ratty because it just made a trip, but like this one is a beauty and health inventory. And I even was able to give this to my friend who came to help me pack and say, can you please go through this tub of hygiene items over here and tell me what I'm missing so that I can buy that when I get back, so that I don't, buy 4 bottles of dry shampoo and then get back and I already have 4, but forget to buy contact solution. So yeah, it's got things like medical appointments. It's got pages for the different destinations. I know a lot of us kind of hop from place to place, at least we do. And so I've got a different page for Florida. I've got a different page for Maryland. I've got a different page for Boston. And yeah, it kind of helps me get my brain on paper. And I see Sarah also added the link into the chat, which is great. It's free. So have at it.
I can't imagine. So right now, I think we've got a lot of people that are trying to get back to the field, but we also have, I know I'm in communities with so many people who are trying to get to the field for the very first time. Yeah. They actually are fully funded, they're ready to go, and they're waiting for visas to open up in different countries to get there. I can't imagine how helpful this would be if you have never taken a home assignment before and you're looking at, oh, actually, I need to start thinking about gifts I'm taking back to supporters. I need to,
Mhm.
weeks before we leave, I need to have that plan in place because we're going to markets and we're scouring for things, or even the fact
Mhm.
that you're doing an inventory. I never think I thought ahead enough to do an inventory. It was more of just like walk through Target and throw stuff in a cart and hope it matches with what I'm missing, which is how I shop here now, which doesn't always work out. So just the thing that you have thought through all of those lists that might need to be made, and doctor's appointments and things that you have to schedule in advance. This is basically your brain for you. You don't have to maybe go through and find that list. And then it gets your brain thinking to be like, oh, actually, and for us, our family is a little bit different. We actually have this thing that I can put on this list too. So that I love that is a thing. Whenever you first started publishing that and putting it out there, I was like, why is this not a thing already? Why is there not an app for this? Like I feel like this would be so great to have. And so as you're doing that, what I've also loved, you said earlier as we were talking, is like, hey, I had a short time to plan my trip back. It was unexpected, but I didn't have to think. I had lists already. All I had to do was grab stuff and fill it out. So kudos to you. Thank you so much for being a brain for so many of us who in that scattered time before you leave don't have all your brain cells operating accurately. So what a huge tool. So as you have walked through this, what would you say is the hardest part now, planning with your family about being on furlough? So Denise, you mentioned, you may not be able to take the 49 stuffed animals that are your comfort stuffed animals. They can't all make the trip with you, and preparing them. A lot of times we don't get to stay in a place that's just your family. You're staying with other families, air mattresses on the floor, like how do you prepare your kids and your family for what may be an extended time of not having that family time that you're used to, or what's the hardest thing for your family about that?
Me.
Go ahead.
Well, thankfully, except for a month out of this time, we've always had our own space. So I have been really like, I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, right? And so putting up boundaries is not a challenge for me. And so I'm like, I know that we need our space, and I know that we have other things to do than just hang out with family. That's just the reality of it. That's why we don't call it a home assignment anymore, because there are things that we need to do. We are still working. It looks different. So we've always, thankfully, just put roots down in one location. And all except for this time when because we'd have bigger periods of time, we would not travel at the beginning or at the end. And so anyone who wanted to come see us could come see us. And I just don't have, I know my personality is crazy. I don't live in the guilt that I don't stop at my mom's house the first day. If my mom wants to come see me, and she does, she'll drive her car to come see me, and it's not a big deal. And so I kind of just don't, I just kind of put those boundaries around my family. I know that when we're leaving, we need to be in one spot, and we need to be together as a family, and we need to be able to do all the errands and the things that we need to do, and the last goodbyes. So those are kind of like pillars that I've put around our home assignment that has been very helpful throughout the years of guarding family. And another thing that we did that I've told people over the years is, you have a calendar, you need to just go ahead and remove weeks off that you can not do anything, right? And you can say, when people ask you, can you come speak here or speak there? You can say, no, I'm busy that week. And that busy might be like sitting on the couch watching Netflix or hanging out with your kids at the pool or whatever. It's just, you got to put those guards in, because you're only there for a short period of time, and they don't know what they don't know. Right. And so just putting up those, I'm just strong on boundaries. And
I love that. Actually scheduling your family as an important piece of your schedule. And if you don't do that, it's all those little things that you drive to exhausted, and you're like, we don't even want to be here, and this is not life-giving to us. And then when you get home, you have to take a vacation from your furlough to recover, our goal is always to be in a better place going back. And you cannot do that
living for everyone else 24/7. We all have responsibilities, and so we have to do those. But yeah, lay aside all that guilt. Just put it away. You can't do it all. You'll do it in 4 years when you come back.
It's such a good word, actually. And Karli, when you look at your calendar, there are those things that your family wants to do. So maybe it's those, hey, we're going to go to Disney, or we're going to, go camping, or the things, how do you manage your calendar when you look at your time that you're going to be there?
Yeah, it's hard, especially because our trips are often much shorter. There is more pressure to see all the people do all the things. And Denise, like you saying, you always try to be in a better place when you go back, like that often does not happen for us. And that's something that I'm really trying to focus on with this trip is number one, taking care of myself, because I think in the last couple of trips that we've done, I've come back and it's taken me like weeks to recover from our trips because they've been so stressful. But I mean, for us, we try to focus a lot on making sure that we maintain the family rhythms that we have when we're in Rwanda also here, and that kind of keeps our family stable. Things like we do pizza and a movie night every Wednesday, and we did it last night here, and our friends that were in Rwanda, they did it without us, and like we all still keep these rhythms going. Things like Sabbath, things like making sure we do our morning and evening routines as a family together. Just kind of setting like a baseline of rhythms that keep us connected has been really helpful for us, especially on these trips that are so short. And I know, like for me, I'm an introvert, I'm a homebody. I require a lot of alone time to be mentally stable. And these trips are hard because I feel like I have to go and see all of the people. I hate to say this, but honestly, like the pandemic has made it a little bit easier to say no to things. And it's taken some of the social pressure off because there are people that we don't feel comfortable seeing. And we're able to say no to certain events. And that has given us a little bit more space, which has been nice. I hate to say that. It's definitely bittersweet, but it's true.
Well, and I feel like it's changed the way that you can furlough or do home assignment in some aspects for the good, but possibly for the, fills up your schedule more, because now you can say yes to things where you don't actually have to go. So you're scheduling Zoom meetings with large people that you maybe would have just said, oh, we can't make it. But now it's like, well, why can't you make it? We can just do this on Zoom. We'll put you up in front of a screen in front of everybody. And, have you found that, Denise, have you had requests to do things that were maybe post-pandemic style on home assignment, or is yours a little bit different?
Well, this one's been very different because like in all my other home assignments, I've had those pillars that I told you like at the beginning, at the end. But when we came back in December, things were still so closed. And so we didn't see hardly anyone. I didn't see my dad. My dad has been really ill. He last year, he like almost died. It was like a horrible thing. He has Crohn's disease, and he's on like a medicine that like, I guess, suppresses his immune system. And so he's doing a lot better now, praise the Lord. But we didn't see him for like 3 months outside of just like distance until they got the vaccine. And so once the vaccine started happening, our schedule opened up more. I think by the time we came back in December, everyone is Zoom, like no one wants to be on Zoom anymore. So no one asked us to do anything.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just like have that resting face that I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, oh,
yeah.
Oh goodness, it's funny. So it's just been weird, right? Because now we're super busy the last month before we go. But I mean, we just went to our home fellowship and we wanted to see all the people. We didn't see all the people. And so we're like, we're going to go to the park from this time to this time. Y'all come see us. And, some people make the effort to come see you. Some people don't. And that's just life. And so I think we just have to remind ourselves is like, that's just life. Sometimes you just can't do it. Right. And so no, say no, can't do it.
If you have trouble saying no, call Denise and hand
Call me. I will.
She will
I
say
will.
no
It's
for you.
it is a joke between the two gals that I podcast, Alicia and Melissa, with. I'm like, just tell them to call me. I'll tell them no for you. I'm like, give me your schedule. I'll schedule all of your appointments and just tell them no, no, no.
So Denise, you bring up a good point. So for a lot of people in the States, church has changed. Attendance is down. People don't feel comfortable coming. When you say you went back to your home fellowship, was it different? Was it weird? Did it feel different? Is that an adjustment?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question, Denise. I mean, things are just crazy, right? I live in the South, and yeah, there's two things happen. Every time you go back, you feel different, right? Like so you have I always think there's this dichotomy, there's the people who are want to go overseas. And so we kind of have this different worldview. And then there's the people who want to stay in the suburbs of America, right? And so you have these two things. And the longer you're gone, you move, your worldview just shifts this way. And I feel like more than ever, this group of people have shifted this way. And so I find this huge gap between me and just the normal folks that go to my home fellowship, who I love, but it's just our worldview right now is so different.
It is.
I can't explain it. And it's sad and it's disappointing. And I'm also what have I changed? Am I crazy? I feel crazy half the time because it's so different. Right. So for me, this time coming back, church has been this loaded thing, right? We aren't sent from a very diverse group of believers. And yeah, so it has been challenging. And we're in the place that we've never been. So we've been going to a new church. We just had a couple relationships because we're home assignment in a place that we usually never home, because my dad was sick. We came back and housing was very hard to get, because so many emergencies had come up. We're in a different town about 3 hours from our home fellowship. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it's been a challenge, and emotionally you feel so different already. Right.
Well,
I feel more different.
You're hitting what a lot of people are feeling, even in the chat. They're saying, I feel that the distance feels huge. I feel it too. And I think, you hit it right on the head to say, if the pandemic and the political season and everything hadn't happened, just being overseas, yes, your worldview changes and you feel different because you see things different, you prioritize things different. What you have seen has affected you as you're broadened in your worldview. And then you come back and you feel the distance in itself, but then throw into everybody who has been overseas the last year, 2 years, 4 years, it's been a huge shift if you had stayed, but then throw that in there. So you come back and it's are we speaking the same language? I feel like we're wearing different glasses. Can we have a conversation if our glasses are different?
Yeah.
Scenario. And so, yeah, I think for those of you overseas right now that are thinking about coming back, this is a whole new thing to prepare your hearts for.
Yeah.
That you're going to be walking in to church doors that are different than when you left. The local churches have gone through things that have polarized in some situations, and you're walking back to people that aren't going to be there that were there before, to things that feel differently, to conversations that are happening that had never happened before. It is loaded to prepare your heart to not only walk back as a global worker, but to walk into what you're walking into. Absolutely.
Now, I want to say one thing that's kind of helped me in this. I remember our first home assignment back. I had 4 littles. I went with 2 small kids and I came back with 4. I remember sitting on the couch in our home assignment home and complaining to my husband about the parties. I'm why are Sunday school classes so obsessed with these parties? Just coming down on it. This is so the world's dying, guys. And y'all are bringing sweet tea to everything, that whole self-righteous, feeling. And the Lord really convicted me. He's you will go to a whole nother culture and go into a whole different church scenario, tradition, and love it, right? And love them and see the bad and love them through it and pray for them. And you come home to your home culture and you are just, I'm done with you guys, I'm done. You're dead to me. And he just showed me, you have to love these people. This is their culture. This is the blind spots of their culture, and how are you going to love them and pray for them? And so that's been really tested this home assignment, but just like trying to remember, okay, how am I going to love these people that I see the way that I would love the people that I live with overseas? There's no difference. God loves them all, right? He wants everyone's heart. So that's been helpful.
No, that's such a good point. Actually, I'd love to even, Karli, ask you, when I brought my kids back, so my daughter, I think, was 16 or 17 when we were on a home assignment, and her youth group was doing a food fight, and they were using like ketchup and different things. And she, again, felt like, I have lived in a country where food is insecure and people are starving, and you are throwing food at each other. And she began to like feel that self-righteous thing. And so even like helping our kids with the worldview that they have, that absolutely the other people, their friends, don't have. I mean, they're still, in that maturing phase where it's all about what's in front of you. And so, Karli, have you had to like walk your kids through what they've seen in Rwanda versus what they're coming here to see, to prepare them for that?
Yeah, it's interesting, like, because we do come back so often, they're used to this more. I think there's a little bit less of a culture shock for them because this is like another normal that they know. But even things like, we're very careful, like food is a great example. We're very careful about food waste, and we compost everything at home. And then we come here and like, so we had a funeral this week. So the house has been full of food that people have been bringing, which has been amazing. But we've had to throw out a ton of food. And it's like really jarring for us to see that. And so talking to our kids about, I don't know, because you don't want to be like, yeah, it's fine to throw out all that food, but also like, I don't know what else to do with all this food. Yeah, I mean, my kids are still smaller, so they don't see it as much. I think as they get older, I think it'll be more apparent. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wild.
So we have a question that I want to take a minute to read. Rebecca's asking, how do you prepare for entering culture again? Do you ask your friends about culture and the state of things? So like, if you haven't been following along really closely, you have been in your ministry, you have been in work, and you haven't been following along with what's happening, how do you prepare to even know, oh, I need to get my heart ready for this?
I feel like that's a hard question for me to answer because I feel like I try to keep up on social media. So I feel like I usually have a pretty good grasp on what I'm walking back into. Now walking back into Target is always very jarring. Right now I'm like, wait, that's like half a t-shirt. I'm suddenly an old person. But yeah, I don't know. I have good friends that are really involved in the American church. And so I feel like I still kind of have a pulse on those things. So I don't know that I can answer that really well.
I am probably the same as you, Karli, but I would stick to asking close friends about it, right? People that you have trusted relationships that have weathered the years, about what the church is like in their opinion. And don't be surprised though, if their worldview is so different than yours, you feel like you're like getting slapped upside the face, but that in itself will prepare you for what you're going through. And for me, this has been my whole struggle, my whole life, is I don't have to die on every hill, and I don't have to insert my, well thought out research opinion on everything. And I can go to the things that we agree on, and that's the gospel, right? Loving our neighbors. We might see differently on what that looks like, but what do we see the same on? And yeah, just kind of go to those trusted people and listen to what people are saying, because yeah, that's always the first step, right? Listening. And yeah, just get ready. The Lord will see you through.
And be surprised if
And bring everything back to the gospel too. Like so much of it, I don't know. I have to really root myself in the word and in trusting the Holy Spirit to help me parse out these things, because there's so many like wonderful people that have such opposing viewpoints about things right now that we just have to stay so rooted in the Spirit to make sure that, I don't know, we're getting our truth from the right places.
Right.
Well, and I would even be prepared, at least in this season of our culture, to hear conflicting things about what's right and what's wrong and what's going on. And even giving yourself the space to have a bit to then take it to the Lord, to filter everything that you've heard before you actually enter into it. So you do have that compassion for people who see things totally differently. And you're not shocked by, oh, I thought it was this way, when there are also a significant amount of people that feel this way about things, you know? And so it's like giving yourself that time to process. So these are some really conflicting things. And I just need to have my heart ready to love, like you said, Denise, and have grace for everybody.
Right.
And love people that might think differently about that. Sarah, I would love to hear from you about, just your experience as Furlough as a single. Did you have trouble saying no, or did you feel like I want to say yes to everything because I have operated differently, maybe feeling more lonely? What was that like as a single planning for Furlough?
Yeah, I kind of learned each time a little bit more about what I needed and what was most helpful. I love what Karli and Denise have shared about kind of having those boundaries. I think the first time I came back to the US, I went to Walmart like the next day and was completely overwhelmed and learned, okay, I need to have some buffer days built in and just to go slow. And so one thing that was helpful for me, I think you guys have kind of touched on this, is just having goals ahead of time of like, these are the people that it's really important for me to see. And I can't see everyone. Like Karli said, I'm kind of more introverted. I needed some downtime after getting together with supporters or sharing at a fellowship or something. And so just knowing that was okay and giving myself grace for that. But then also looking for the times when people could come to me. So I had a home fellowship in Texas, and so knew it would take, a plane trip from Nebraska to go see them. And instead of setting up, 50 bazillion individual times, I did an open house. And that way people could just come. And it was so lovely. Like, it surprised me, the people that did come. And I got to have little conversations with people. And then, within a couple of hours, I had seen so many people that I loved. And the church did it, so much to put that together for me. And it was the sweetest thing. And so kind of knowing ahead of time, okay, these are my goals and these are the priority things, kind of helped me schedule that time and figure it out.
My sister was a single global worker, and I remember the first time she came back, I packed up my 4 kids and I had arranged all of these things, and we just descended on this poor woman who was used to having a little bit of more quiet in her life. And I think we just sent her over the edge, because then she didn't come out of her room for 2 days. It was way too much. So, even being able to express to people, hey, this is what I need, and this is a little bit too much, and, feeling like you can do that. But I think you're right, Sarah. It's a learning process to understand, her, I think she knew to tell me and my family to just give her a little bit of space. Don't descend the moment she, gets off. For her, it was a learning curve on all ends of that. But I want to talk a little bit about the process of going back to the field. So, we have called Denise. She has said no to everything for us. We've had a really good time. But now we are trying to get our kids ready to say, okay, you're going to not eat at Chick-fil-A again for a while. We're not going to be able to take the huge trike that your grandpa got you for Christmas, because he wasn't thinking about that we have to pack things to go back home, you know? So like, how do you prepare your kids for that time to transition? Is it luring them with your pet, you know, that's back home? You know, what are those things that you do? Denise, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I saw up earlier that someone had asked, they had mentioned that their child is like, I'm going to live with grandma and I'm not coming back with you. And I think in my experience, now all of my kids are different and we've lived overseas a long time. So none of my kids remember America like being their full-time place. It's always like a temporary Disneyland experience, right? But I'm always surprised how ready my kids are ready to go. Even my 14-year-old, he is ready to go back home. He's going to miss his friends here, but it's like home. And so I really, I'm not saying that we don't prepare our kids, right, for going back. There are things we need to do. We need to talk about it. We need to set realistic expectations. We need to listen to them and to what their little hearts are feeling. But in the long run, if the Lord has called you where you're at, he is going to prepare your family. And that's just one thing over the years that I have just clung to, that if I am called, and I know I am called to where we're at, that it is the best place for my kids. It might be the hard thing, right? Like we, especially as Americans, all want our kids' lives to be the easiest as possible. Our whole culture is like, don't allow the kids to struggle. Don't allow this to happen. And just watching the Lord work his story through their lives is one of the most challenging things about parenthood, and seeing them in the sadness and the grief and being there for them and just trusting the Lord that that's his story and he's going to use that for their salvation and for their character is really hard to live. But so I really want, if it's your first home assignment, I really want you to try to worry less about that and just see what the Lord does. I never want to go back in the beginning of my home assignments. I was like, I'm done with that place. It's hot. It's lonely. You know, I have to cook everything from scratch. I have to homeschool all these kids that I thought were a great idea, you know, and I don't ever want to go back, but the Lord, he does it, right? And now I'm like, okay, I got to get back from this crazy place called America. Like I need to go back over there. So just wait on the Lord and see what he's going to do. Just be encouraged in that. That's the only advice I have. It's really not much advice, but you know.
Great. Karli, what about you?
Yeah, I really agree. It's been less about the stuff for us and more about the people, which is a gift, right? Like my daughter absolutely sobbed when we left Rwanda last week, like sobbed because she didn't want to go. Excited to come to America, but at the same time, like was having a really hard time. And she'll do the same thing when we leave the US to go back. And so we talk a lot about how it's a gift, but also a really, really hard thing to have our hearts in multiple places. And that the Lord has blessed us with community in Rwanda and in Florida and in Maryland and all of these places, and how that means that we get to call all of these places home and all of these people family, but also it means that we're always leaving someone and we're always missing someone, and how this world is not our home when it all comes down to it, and how God meets us in these places when we're lonely and we're missing people, and he gives peace to our hearts. And yeah, we just try to really have a lot of open conversations about how we're feeling about these things. And I try to share my own feelings, right? Like I wasn't ready to come back to the US. I wasn't ready to do this trip, but we needed to. And so I was really open with my kids about how it was also hard for me. And I think that created a safe space for them to share how they were feeling. And
I think you just really hit something there in the fact that the privilege that we have, the perspective that we gain, is that we truly understand what it is to know that this world is not our home, because we don't feel at home anywhere. And we understand that the only place we're going to truly feel that feeling again is in heaven. And that really is a gift that not a lot of people get. And we do get that. And I do want to just acknowledge that we have some questions that are coming up. And I think that now we are going to enter the random question time
Okay.
of our chat together. And
I'm ready
so,
for it.
are you ready for this? So one of the things is those gifts for home assignment. You know, when you're thinking about supporters, when you're thinking about family, when you're thinking about things, it adds up. It's bulky. What are some great ideas of things that you have maybe thought to bring back that people have really liked or has been easy to pack and travel with?
Sarah said tea and coffee, and I think that's a really good one. This time we didn't have time to go shopping for all the people, but we own a coffee farm. So we brought some of our coffee for some of our supporters, which has gone over really well. Something that we've also done previously was magnets. I feel like in most countries, if you're in a touristy area, you can find some kind of magnet that's like in the shape of the country or has a fun thing that says the country's name. We've done that before and that's been pretty easy too.
I'm really bad at this. Pass.
I tell you one thing that I'm not sure is legal and one thing that went over really well. So in South Sudan, it became a country while we were there, and they did away with the money that was originally for the whole country, and then they split it up. So we had all of these coins that were no longer like in circulation, and so my husband like drilled holes in them and made little keychains out of the old Sudanese money. And it's so fun to still run up into supporters that have that on their keychain and use that. I don't know if that's legal to deface government money like that, but there it is out there for everyone. And then we did this one thing. There's these little like oilcloth batik art that's so small. It was like this big, and it was local artists, and it just really depicted life in Africa. And oh my word, we could do a whole stack of them, you know, like barely any space. And then we went to IKEA and just bought little frames when we got back, and it looked like this classy little African art thing that cost us maybe $3, you know, total. And we were able to bring the significant part from Africa and then buy the cheap part that was bulkier once we got to the States. And to me, that was like a fun gift that I actually still have, would still put up on my wall, you know. So coffee is always a favorite of people though.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you have any ideas? Well, you put coffee and tea in there. So, okay. Another question was marriage, and, you know, maybe overseas, you don't have the help or the places or the resources or the time to take care of your marriage. But when you come home and you have family and time to actually get away, what do you do to take care of that or invest in that while you're on home assignment?
A couple home assignments ago, Jay, my husband and I it was like we had gone through the most stressful time overseas. There was lots of external things, leadership issues. We got a diagnosis from my son during that time. You know, just it was really hard. We skidded into home assignment and it was brutal. I mean, it was brutal. It was a bad time for us. And we did counseling. We did a whole year of counseling, marriage counseling, and just individual counseling, just processing things that had happened to us and having a professional person tell us it's okay. That was really bad that happened to you and that shouldn't have happened to you. And, you know, like working through things like that. I mean, I'm always pro counseling. I'm pro marriage counseling. I don't like it as much as my husband. My husband's a feeler. He loves counseling. He loves talking about his feelings. I know that some of you guys are like, oh, I wish my husband was like that. No, you don't, because he's got so many feelings and I don't have hardly any. And so it's always like, you know, like the spectrum, but it's been so helpful. And once you establish those counseling, one way thing that that COVID has done that's amazing is the amount of services that have come online, right? So when you go on home assignment, whether you feel you need it or not, go to a counselor and then get his number for when you go to the back overseas and you need it, right? Build that rapport, build that what you need, even when you feel like you're doing great, right? And then it's like planning for the future when things aren't great, because there will be a time when things aren't great, right? That's life, it's ups and downs. And so that was the number one thing. Our kids are a little bit older now, and so we have babysitters and So that's like a whole new world when you have like babysitters built into your family. So just go out, spend time with each other, find something y'all like to do together and do it every day. So.
Karli, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to big agree with Denise on counseling. We've done both like kind of one-off counseling sessions when we've been back, and we had a very similar like rough patch that we skidded into, like you said, a couple of years ago, and we did like a counseling intensive retreat that time that we were back, and we took so at the beginning of our assignment and at the end, we took 2 days and we did intensives with a counselor who had lived overseas, was familiar with the third culture life, and it saved us. Like if we hadn't done that, I don't know if we would still be on the field.
Yeah.
So just, yeah, also very pro counseling. As far as like practical stuff, every time we're back, first of all, we try to keep up with a weekly date night. And sometimes that has to look like ordering in and playing games, but just being intentional with one night a week to spend time with each other. Sometimes we get to go out. And then we also try to do a kid-free weekend or vacation of some kind while we're back. So we've done it before where we've gone on like a big actual vacation, just the two of us. This time it's going to look more like a really close B&B for the weekend. But we try to take that time because it's harder to get when we're overseas. We have great people that watch our kids for us, but it's you know, our grandparents would like very much love to do that for us. So we try to take advantage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I found that something that we could do overseas and then continue to do like when we're on home assignment was, and we sound like we're 80-year-olds, but go on a walk together, because for us, that was like space to process. Our phones weren't going off, our computers weren't there. There wasn't somebody coming to the door with a need. It was uninterrupted, you know, an hour of talking and dreaming. Like I realized if we can't dream together about where we think the Lord is moving with our ministry, our life, our kids, how we want to invest in them, then we were in a tough spot. And so I know that that's a good gauge for us, is if we're not able to dream about something, then we maybe do need to get that help and bring in other people, because we have lost the ability to dream together about our future and about what the Lord is doing. And it's like our hope is tied up in that ability to dream in that together. And we could do that overseas. And then when we came back, it was like our time of reconnecting. When you're on that home assignment and you have so many things coming at you, that walk, again, it's all gone. You are just the two of you, and you can say the things that are driving you nuts about the culture and things that you can't wait to get back to, things that you're processing through. And it's like that space for you to just, you know, get away and do that together. And you can take that with you anywhere. And so that worked well for us. And I totally agree. We've got a great relationship with GRC, which offers online counseling, and the majority of all of their counselors are TCK. They have lived overseas. They understand the things that you're bringing to the table. And it makes such a difference to have somebody that is like, hey, I understand what you're talking about, what you're going through. And we have just found a lot of great gifts with working with them. Well, I know that we are getting close to the end of our time together. And I just would say, do you have any gadgets, hacks, anything? I was traveling with a young couple right before pandemic, and they had this stroller, ladies, that packed up into this big that you can put in the overhead compartment. And it was just like, I was like, this is amazing. You know, like, do you have anything that is like, you have to do this, or this is great for the plane, or what is your like, do you have a hack that you would just love to share with our ladies before we sign off today?
The one thing that I have done over the years is more for plane travel is implement empty contact cases. So you can put like little face lotion, you can put all the things, just like a little spot of it where you don't have to, in empty contact cases. And this might sound gross, but this is a safe place. One of the things that I really struggle with is like dryness on those long hauls, like up in my nose. And so I bring a little thing with Vaseline and Q-tips and lube it up, girls. And I'm telling you, it really makes a difference for like that dryness that you feel on the airplane. So Q-tips, Vaseline, and use those empty contact cases to put all the little dibbles and dabbles that you need.
That is an epic hack. I've never thought of that. So good. I bring like all of my skincare on the plane. I'm like big diva energy on a plane. Specifically for pandemic plane travel, a tip that I've figured out is, especially if you're worried about your kids wearing masks, like my kids were on a plane for 12 hours. It's brutal to wear a mask for that long for me. But if you're eating, they let you take your mask off and they don't care. So I pack extra snacks even for these. So if my kids are getting fidgety with their masks, we just give them a snack. And it's worked really well. Yeah, I'm trying to think. We got our kids each their own set of headphones a couple of years ago. That seems like a really basic thing, but they struggle with the earbuds that they give you on the plane. So them each having their own headphones, and we only use them on like in travel stuff. So that also gets them really excited.
I also like to starve my kids from anything electronic before we go on the plane. So, you know, especially like when families around and stuff, and you're like sending your kids off to get ready. I'm like, no TV, no nothing. So that when they get on the airplane, that's all they want to do.
So great.
I love it.
I saw somebody, and honestly, Denise, it might have been you guys that talked about this maybe even years ago, but it was like taking one of those Monday through Sunday pill boxes and putting a small little snack in each one. So it's like M&Ms and cashews and like raisins. And so it's like a fun little thing that takes them a little bit longer to get into. They can ration it, you know, and
That sounds like an Alicia thing.
it might have been. It was super cute. And I was like,
I'm like throwing like a granola bar at my kids and telling them to watch TV.
Yeah.
I don't prepare very well for them. My poor kids. I'm so not loving. I'm like, no, sit down.
I would look at our teammates that had all the babies and just be like, thank you, Lord. Thank you that my kids are self-sufficient, because it looked like a really hard thing. So kudos to you ladies who have done that with the babies.
The best thing, guys, to look forward to is when your kids can go to the bathroom on their own in the airplane. That's like you feel like you've hit like next level in your life of freedom.
I guess my hack is I always bring airplane socks. It's like the big old fuzzy ones that you take off your shoes and you just like curl them on your feet. And then they're pretty disgusting by the end, but it's not on your feet, and you can put your clean feet back in your shoes. And so,
that's a good one.
Yeah. But well, ladies, thank you so much for this. This has been a blast, and it has been so fun to get to know you. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed this conversation. We have a few more of these with Velvet Ashes. We want to talk about social media next week. Is it your family album, a ministry tool? Is it too much drama and you just want to stay off of it? Is it a combination of all of them? So we want to talk about that next week. And then we're going to talk about short-term trips. Do you love them? Do you hate them? Are they damaging? Are they helpful? We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to finish off with this event for singles the last week in June. We are so excited to just get all of you single community together and let you chat about life, encourage each other, and listen to author Susie Grumlot talk about her experience with being single. So we hope that you enjoy our Summer Live series. Thank you, Taking Root. Thank you, Third Culture Thriving. We love what you guys are doing.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
But all right, ladies, we'll sign off now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.